Hi everyone, I'm going to be speaking to you today about the first half of August and the full moon that we have coming up in Aquarius. But before I get to the astrology, I'd just really like to say a huge heartfelt thank you. We've just hit a very big subscriber number, and normally I never refer to the numbers, but I just want to take this opportunity to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You send me so much love, so much support, and it truly does touch me. I feel quite tearful sometimes at your comments, and I try and read them all and respond where I have time and I feel it's important. So just thank you, thank you. Those are big numbers which are slightly scary and a tad baffling, but on we go. And if these videos are helpful to you, then my task is worthwhile. But obviously, you have done that. You have subscribed, and I'm very, very grateful. So thank you so much. I don't say it often enough. Okay, on we go to talk about the first half of August. I mean, 2025 is an enormous year, isn't it? As anticipated, it is very dynamic, very fast moving, very event packed, very chaotic. And with the chaos, do be reassured by the astrology, because many people are thinking it's the end of the world. Well, it isn't actually. It's the end of a world, the old world. But the chaos is right on time. The chaos is exactly what certainly I was expecting, and many other astrologers were, because it's this sense of endings and beginnings, this sense of this very high frequency energy coming in, which creates great turbulence in the energetic field, so that those low vibration structures that were not born of love, that were not born of integrity, no longer have the energy to sustain them. So please, whatever you do, whatever the drama, whatever the color, etc., try not to give your attention to what's collapsing, because it acts as a life support system for what we absolutely don't want more of. So really try and be aware that your focus and your attention, as the wonderful Paul Levy, the author, says, they are our superpowers, because they are energetic food in the quantum realm. So try and focus on what you want, not on what you don't want, however exciting and dramatic it appears. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you the chart in a moment. There's a lot to say about this. Just before we look at it, you'll see that if I include Homer and Sedna in this, we have 7 orbiting bodies at the time of the full moon, all at 1 to 2 degrees of their signs. So this is, as we know, a highly initiatory time, a time of very big new beginnings. And not only are the outer planets moving into their new signs in this year, at least beginning their movement into their new signs, but we have this very strong cardinal energy. Neptune and Saturn being at on the world axis, 0 to 2 degrees of Aries, but we have 7 orbiting bodies between 0 to 2 degrees of their sign. So there is this very strong sense of both collective and personal initiation. Having said that, 3 of those planets, those outer planets, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto, are all already in retrograde motion. And I've called this this period in summer, Northern Hemisphere time, our rehearsal time, our test run for who we are already becoming. But be aware, as of 1st of September, Saturn retrogrades back into Pisces. 22nd of October, Neptune retrogrades back into Pisces. 8th of November, Uranus moves back into Taurus. And they stay in those previous signs that they occupied over the turn of the year. And then it's really next spring, Northern Hemisphere time, that we have our launch, our personal launch and our collective launch, because on the 20th of February, Saturn and Neptune are exactly conjunct to the minute, 0 degrees 44 minutes of Aries. They have been at their closest within 13 minutes of each other. I think it's on the 18th of July. So they've just passed that glimpse we had of our future. So that's Saturn Neptune on the 20th of February. And then we have Uranus entering Gemini on the 26th of April. And then not to forget that Uranus comes to exactly to the minute conjunct Sedna in May. And that is a real kind of ignition point, I feel. And all those outer planets are then fully in their new signs for the rest of their cycles. So this is a whole new experience for us personally. So it is this sense of speed and lightness, because they're principally moving into air and fire. Gemini for Uranus, Aquarius for Pluto, Aries for Saturn, and Neptune. A feeling of speed, dynamism, flexibility, and really quite different values as we move forwards as well, shifting away from the kind of territorial materialism we've had in the past and how much in your bank account and your status and your title. We're moving away, well away from all of that, and coming together in collaboration and community in a much, much more horizontal way, and I think a very exciting way. So therefore, we have this sense of new beginnings, initiation, with so many outer planets in 1 to 2 degrees of their signs. But we already have 3 of those outer planets moving retrograde, as I say. We have Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto. But all of them through these late months of the year are going to be moving back to their previous sign. So that sense of taking a step back, integrating, reassessing is going to be even stronger September, October, November onwards. But it's beginning already now. So it's this very complex energy of yes, we are moving forwards. We want to move forwards. We have ideas, we have thoughts and visions, but are we quite ready? Do we need to find some practical steps, or do we need to find people of like mind, a kind of community or a support group, or what do we need to do to fulfill that dream? Because Saturn, Neptune next February, making real the dream, that's the beginning of an important cycle of making real the dream. So it's this odd juxtaposition of kind of, we have it in our minds, we have it in our imagination, we have it in our thoughts, and we may, in some instances, have to act before we feel we're ready. But for many of us, it's going to be, I need to sort some other things out, either practical steps or connections with others before I can fully launch myself. But you should be getting ideas, messages, glimpses of who the new you is going to be. And really, every night you can ask your dreams, please show me the next step in who I am meant to become. Show me the next step in who I am already becoming. Set the same appointment with the universe every day and do some automatic writing. It'll be gibberish the first few days or even a couple of weeks. But gradually, you've made an appointment with the universe and useful information will start to pour through. So these things, turning inwards, really, really helpful. Okay, so let's take a look at this chart, because there's a lot to share for this full moon in Aquarius. Okay, so this is happening on the 9th of August. It's happening on the clock, because we're still in British summertime, at 8:56 in the morning. And with a full moon, you always have the sun and moon opposite each other. So here we have our full moon, 17 degrees of Aquarius, and the sun pretty much there too. So let's think about the connections to Aquarius. Well, they are very much to do with freedom, independence, the future, idealism, forming networks and communities. I always think of mycelium, tree roots, mushroom roots connecting. Networks, information networks, collaboration, all of those things are very strongly indicated here. And that those themes of freedom are very strong. Also, truth. Truth is a huge theme in this chart, which I'll elaborate on. I also want to say authenticity. And that isn't just the full moon in Aquarius, it's Pluto in Aquarius, it's Uranus in Gemini, which is also quite nonconformist. So as long as we are in people-pleasing and compromising mode, we have a tendency to please everyone else, but not ourselves. And so we have to step into a more honest version of ourselves to really feel fulfilled in these times with the energies that are coming in. Really fascinating. I've just listened to a short video from Dr. Zach Bush. If I can, I'll find it again. It was actually on Facebook. It's a very short video. If I can share that link, I will. But it was very short. He was being interviewed and he was saying there was a recent study using what's called the Spain scale, SPANE, which is a scale of positive and negative experience. And in this experiment, they took a whole bunch of people and put them in a Faraday cage. So they were insulated from the electromagnetic field of the Earth. And they engaged them in conversation. And they wanted to see where the energy was peaking for these people in the conversation. And they were spanning a whole range of subjects. And they expected, predictably, to see when they hit subjects like love and joy, when they were talking about loved ones, family, pets, friends, that there would be a peak in the energy. When those people were feeling love, joy, gratitude, appreciation, absolutely, there was a surge in the energy that registered on the measurement equipment. But the biggest surge by far was quite a surprise. And they didn't know what it was, and they had to keep rerunning the conversations, because it was often when the person was being quite forceful, passionate, assertive, and they discovered that what was being expressed at that time was authenticity. And the peak measurements were in authenticity. And Dr. Zach Bush said the measurements were 40 times higher than those peaks of energy expressing love and joy. 40 times higher. I mean, that's pretty remarkable, isn't it? This full moon in Aquarius is all about authenticity, truth, honesty, being who we truly are. So I found that really interesting and remarkable. So let us count through what I was just saying, the 7 orbiting bodies at 1 to 2 degrees of their sign. So here we have 1, 2, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Sedna, 3, 4, Mars, 5, Homer, 6, Pluto, 7. Quite remarkable, a great sense of new beginnings and initiation. But as I said, we already have 3 of the outer planets in retrograde motion, Pluto, Saturn, Neptune. They're still in their new signs, but they will retrograde back into their previous signs, as I outlined a few minutes ago. Now, what is also interesting here, I've talked a great deal in previous videos about what is called the mini triangle, or the cradle, this Uranus-Sedna conjunct, Neptune-Saturn in sextile to those, and another sextile here to Pluto. So Pluto trine to Uranus-Sedna. Now, they are super close to each other at this point. They are all of those planets are within 1 degree of exactitude of sextiles trines. They're all very positive aspects, remember. The geometry is very positive. It's not challenging, as in a square or an opposition, but this is really tight in its expression of what is going to come more fully to blossom next year. This mini triangle comes to its closest point really July, August next year. And it stays within orb through 2027 and then really starts to break up in 2028. And this is why this period of time, from now, particularly to the end of 27, which is what I've highlighted in the big picture, etc., is an accelerated period of time for humanity. It's accelerated evolution, which is why it's so incredibly important in terms of how we make our choices, how we operate day to day. And that's what I'm really trying to share in these videos. So the Sun and Mercury are both in Leo. This is still the sign of creativity and courage. And we really are being asked to step into our courage now and our sovereignty and our creativity in a much bigger way than we have before. Because we still have this, we have a very tight, what's called a quindecile, spelt quindecile, between the Sun and Pluto. This is this 165 degree, this little Q here, aspect, and you can only use a 2-degree or by the side. But this is still this wrestling between individual sovereignty, and Pluto very often represents the sovereignty of the state, the invisible government. So there's still a sense of churn around that too. But that's what's a huge theme as well in this period of time. So other things I would like to highlight here. When we're thinking about truth, we also have Mercury very tightly opposing Pluto. Whenever we have a hard aspect between Mercury and Pluto, particularly because Pluto is in the sign of truth, Aquarius, secrets, Pluto, long repressed, deep hidden secrets, can come to light. And this is a real demand for that, a demand for truth to come to light. So this full moon is shining a bright light on that. And I think we could start to see a torrent of truth coming to the fore in a much bigger way. And what I find interesting right now, I talked a few videos ago about don't get distracted by the zigzags, because there are going to be many zigzags in the narrative of, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? He's a good guy today. He was a bad guy. It's just exhausting. If we're giving away our power to external authority, it really is exhausting. And, it almost just doesn't matter really. But what is helpful here is, just like the pandemic created a boomerang effect, a craving for human connection after the lockdown, what we wanted was human connection. We wanted hugs, we wanted laughter with other human beings physically, didn't we? I mean, I certainly did. Many people did. And that's what spawned a lot of groups who believed in the same attitudes of freedom. So in the same way, all of these wild zigzags of which side of the political spectrum are you on, which has been highly polarized, particularly in America, but actually these things are happening all over the world. It is making people from both sides demand the truth. So this is actually acting as a catalyst for unity, because more and more people, irrespective of their political orientation, are demanding the truth. And that's true right across the world now, right across the world. But it's very obvious in America right now. And that is a unifying principle. So just notice how these chaotic challenges always act as catalysts for our greater good to move us towards unity consciousness and greater human connection. Really, really important. So here we have a beautiful grand trine in air. We have Uranus Sedna, 1 degree of Gemini, Mars, 1 degree of Libra, Pluto, 2 degrees of Aquarius. So when you have a grand trine, this is something where the energy really flows. So this is beautiful. This is about air, is about the element of air is about ideas and inspiration. It's very future oriented, both because of Uranus and it rules Aquarius. Very future oriented. It's around themes of freedom, truth, authenticity, community, all of those things. And it's visionary. This grand trine is visionary. And Mars acts as a trigger, really, an initiator for a lot of these ideas. It's very exciting. And Mars in Libra, although it's in its detriment and in a personal birth chart, it can be sometimes tricky because you can be conflicted around issues of anger and aggression. And it's usually because you experienced anger and aggression in the early home, whether that was spoken or unspoken. You can often end up as the peacemaker. You wanted to smooth it over, but that's in a natal chart. Here, it suggests actually more collaboration, coming together. So does Gemini, social contact. So does Aquarius, community. So we are dreaming up. It's this inspiring, visionary generation of ideas, a lot of which may come out on social media, Gemini, Aquarius, a lot to do with our awakening, our freedom, our future. Really exciting. So that's an immensely positive aspect of this full moon in Aquarius. We have a very strong aspect between Mars and Saturn Neptune here. Now, the more challenging side of this is that this could actually be aggression at sea, aggression Mars, Neptune at sea. It can be aggressive action taken with poor judgment, precipitously. It can be aggressive action taken on misinformation. So it's ill-judged in that sense. So, but it can work beautifully in terms of our actions become more compassionate and more spiritual and more grounded. So we may practice more yoga, more Tai Chi. We may go down to the local food collection point to give out food to people in need. We may join the soup run to help people in need. That kind of spiritual action, which is grounded. And that can be really quite a beautiful expression of that aspect. The other thing, just to mention that Mars, whenever you get a hard aspect between Mars Saturn, if you have it in your own chart, it shows great tenacity, determination, grit, pushing self to the limit. You often see it in the charts of people who go into the military because they have the capacity to push self physically to the limit, but it can be quite militaristic as well. And this is on the midheaven of the American chart for the 4th of July, 1776, Philadelphia, 10 past 5 in the afternoon. And Neptune, Saturn are at the IC, the base of that chart, where they will stay for some months. And of course, we've had immense flooding in the US. I mean, Texas, even New York. I mean, there have been many areas of America that have had some highly unusual and excessive flooding. Saturn, Neptune sitting at the IC, the land, the base of the chart. Okay, so other things to mention here. We have conjunct the South Node. We have Orcus. And Orcus is the Etruscan god of the underworld, who takes those who have violated sacred or divine law, takes them down to the underworld, and makes them see the truth. Again, we have a theme of truth. And if they see the truth, then they can come back up to the light. But if not, there will be some enforcement of justice. That's really the myth of Orcus. And it's very interesting here that this Saturn-Neptune conjunction is in also a quindicile, this sense of upheaval or churn or obsession. Quindicile can be an obsession around those issues. Who has broken divine and sacred law? So this quindicile is only connecting to Orcus because it only has a 2-degree orbit. Either way, it's too far to bring in really the south node. But because Orcus is conjunct the south node, there is a feeling of karma. There's a feeling of karma here and debts needing to be paid. I think that's an important part of this too. And let's not forget beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Chariklo, who we haven't talked about for some time. Chariklo, wife of Chiron in myth, connected to the Buddhist eternal state of being through her silence and her high frequency. She was able to heal people, including helping to heal Chiron, just through her state of being. And that Buddhist stillness and silence is always there for us, always there. It's really calling us to drop into that. Just taking a few deep breaths will drop us into that beautiful, silent, still state of being, to go above the hubbub, above the zigzags, the noise, the crazies, sitting there conjunct this full moon. It's a great reminder of where we need to go frequently in our day just to experience that. And just as a reminder, I think it's a helpful stepping stone. I'll put the yogic baby belly breath video that I posted some time ago beneath this video, because it's just a very simple reminder of how we can drop into that state and then drop into the silence. So really, really, really beautiful. The other thing I would just remind us of is our choices, Gemini. Really be conscious of all of your choices as we move through these times. They are so vital. This is an incredibly condensed period of accelerated evolution for humanity. We are already in the rehearsal. We don't get a second one. This is it. We're in the process of evolution. We're in the mush of the caterpillar. We don't go on to another rehearsal and another rehearsal. We're in it now. That's why things feel so intense and condensed. So stay on your eagle's perch, observe how you're moving through your day, observe your feelings and emotions, observe whether you're living in your truth and your authenticity, observe your emotional state, because everything cascades from that. And I can probably stop sharing here. But the other thing to say, you probably noticed there that Jupiter was conjunct Venus in Cancer. And Jupiter, as we know, is exalted in Cancer, so that's a super positive place for Jupiter to be. And actually, whenever we get a Jupiter-Venus conjunction, they are the two benefics in astrology. And they are, I mean, that's a beautiful conjunction. They're both coming to be conjunct on the 11th and 12th of August at 14 of Cancer. So if you see where 14 of Cancer falls in your chart, which house area, this can be a very happy time of some abundance, some recognition. It can be very social. It can be even romantic, super positive. And if you have a planet at 14 degrees of Cancer, 2-degree orb either way, this can be really beautiful, because that conjunction doesn't always happen. Obviously it happens fairly regularly because of the orbit of Venus, but it doesn't happen always when Jupiter is in Cancer, sign of its exaltation, and it doesn't happen right on Sirius, our spiritual star. Sirius, our binary star, our spiritual star, very bright in the sky, is at 14 degrees of Cancer. So this is incredibly beautiful. Sirius was linked to the myth of Isis, incredibly important in Egyptian mythology, and Sirius is linked to the flooding of the Nile and how that was welcomed to really bring water to the crops so they could have abundance of food, etc. So it's very much Sirius is seen as our spiritual wisdom, cosmic energy, and the fact that we have Jupiter and Venus conjunct that very degree is extremely propitious, extremely beautiful at this time, amidst all the zigzags and chaos at the 3D world. And just let it all go. Just really, really try not to give it your attention. I know it's like a never-ending movie, but when we give it our attention, we give it life force. So just really, from this point on, there's just so much potential to leave the old behind. And I think this sense of new earth is becoming more and more palpable. I mentioned in a recent video that particularly when I was on a retreat in France recently, I really had that embodied sense of that all of us there at that retreat, we were new earth. We were in a state of love, joy, gratitude, appreciation, sharing. We were new earth. Because this shift, this evolutionary transition is happening through our physicality. And that's how we transmute the more difficult energies. We may feel those more difficult energies, but we then shift them into the light. We shift them into those more positive emotions. We're a kind of, transducer in that sense, a transformer. And we are learning to do that more and more easily. So that sense of new earth is becoming more and more palpable. And remember that you can't be in fear and love at the same time. They're two different ends of the stick. You have to choose. We can't be in chaos and coherence at the same time. You're in one or the other. So make a conscious choice of where you're putting your focus. And I really do feel that these qualities that we're talking about, qualities of authenticity, honesty, integrity, humility, gratitude, heart coherence, these are the entry cards to these higher dimensions. I think if we're not in integrity, if we're not in coherence, it's going to be quite a struggle to reach those higher dimensions. And that's down to each of us. We truly are, more than ever before, we truly have a more blank canvas than ever before, because this is such a shift and we've left the tram tracks. So we are the co-creators, we are the co-producers, we are the co-participants, we're all of it. It isn't that the shift is happening, the ascension is happening out there. It's through us. I think that's so, so important. And so we are already starting to experience the eclipse energy, which is happening next month in September. And just looking down the timeline, I noticed it was very interesting that the new moon, which is happening on the 23rd of August, which is at 0 of Virgo, is square to Uranus, which is very powerful, yet again, truth, authenticity, etc., seismic activity. It's falling. The Sun and Uranus, the new moon and Uranus, are falling exactly over the angles of, for the country, the Philippines. So I just happened to notice that. So we will see how that plays out. But really do think of this principle of authenticity and how staggering and surprising it is that it's 40 times higher in energy. It matters more even than love and joy, particularly as we've lived in such an age of where people pleasing and not rocking the boat has been so encouraged. So truly be yourself. As Oscar Wilde said, everybody else is already taken. One of my favorite quotes. God bless. I hope that's helped you. And thank you so much again for all the loving support you send me. It matters more than you can possibly know. God bless. Bye for now.